So I guess we'll go ahead and get started. Can everybody hear me okay? It's hard to tell how loud it is. No? Now? So my name is Jason Green. I work for Lochner Engineering and Planning. I've had the good fortune of helping the UDOT Transit team out for the past few years. Um, when I tell people that I've been helping out with the UDOT Transit team, the typical question is, you must mean UTA, and which is understandable, given their market share and the size of their service area. But what most people don't know is that annually, there's about 4.4 million trips outside of the Wasatch Front area, transit trips. So, and those trips provide a myriad of benefits for low income persons with disabilities, seniors, and just fixed route transit. So there are incredible number of benefits statewide in terms of transit and what the UDOT Public Transit team does and their funds. So that's what we'll talk about today. So I'm here to introduce this lovely gentleman next to me. Some of you may know Tim Boschert for his good looks, perhaps his charm. But Tim brings more to the table. He has about 30 years of experience in the transportation industry, private and public sector. Prior to finding his meaning in life and being the director of the public transit team, he also worked for the transit or the planning department, as well as enhancement funds. Prior to that, he worked for Wasatch Front Regional Council and PBS&J before that in the good state of Florida and Georgia. So it's been an honor to work with him. And with that, I'll introduce Mr. Tim Boschert.
Thanks, Jason. You can keep your job at least another week. Jason said I'm a director for public transit here at UDOT. Really, when you think of UDOT, just as he was saying, it's not something that you think of transit. And as he mentioned, we serve the state of Utah everywhere outside of the service area of UTA. We do everything from fixed route transit, demand route transit, as well as special services. So what we really get into when we say rural transit, and I want to say here's a list of people in our group that can help. It's really about different FTA programs, the Federal Transit Administration. When you pump your gallon of gas and that federal tax per gallon goes in, half goes to highways, half goes to transit. Not everybody thinks about that. But the federal programs that return to Utah that we're responsible for are known as 5300 series programs that are listed there. I'm going to start with fixed route transit. Again, everybody thinks of UTA right off the bat. There's 9 different transit systems within the state outside of UTA. One of our newest is Basin Transit Administration or Association, fairly new startup. They're what, about 5 years old, 6 years old, I believe now, over in Roosevelt and the Vernal area. One of their claims to fame, just of startup, is they've been having standing room only on their fixed route systems. Cedar Area Transit, fairly small system down there, primarily serving students and the residents within the core area of Cedar City. Also, Navajo Transit, part of a system, part of their 3-state system. We've got a small portion of that down in the extreme southeast corner of Utah. Ute Transit, again, up by Roosevelt, Vernal area. Park City Transit was probably our largest and most aggressive client. And Cache Valley Transit as well, also known for their free fare service. Now, when I talk fixed route transit, again, these are smaller system operators. people aren't really used to hearing that unless you live out in these areas and you're aware about their service. Part of their service that they have to provide not only just for the fixed route, scheduled bus route service is a demand route service, a on-call type service for persons with disabilities and seniors as well. And last system there, SunTrans down in St. George. If you've noticed on some of these, it says that we don't have any funding going through some of these systems. None of these systems do we fully fund. We are just assistance funding that we help and assist them in procurement of the vehicles, the buses themselves, their demand route buses, as well as some operational monies. Again, in no way do we fully fund any of these systems. I kind of wish we could help more, but that comes through their local funding options, both through option taxes as well as the fuel tax. So beyond kind of the large program of the fixed route system, another piece that we provide through FTA, it's called Intercity Bus. So this is connection and linkage of the rural major cities. Think Greyhound system of years past. The routes that are run were either old Greyhound runs that have been dropped or abandoned, but linking some of the primary cities. We did a study about 5 years ago now, that tried to really tried to find what was the most highest demand route in the system across the state. Turned out to be Blanding to Salt Lake with the second winner of Richfield to Salt Lake. We led a contract through the state procurement that settled on Elevated Transit. It's a new startup group in the state to provide this Greyhound style intercity bus. They've been up in operation just over a year now, have been providing service from Blanding to Salt Lake, and then get the Richfield to Salt Lake routes. Richfield just hasn't taken off that well yet, but the Blanding route is gaining ridership pretty much month to month, quarter to quarter. I would invite you, when you're driving the Southeast Corridor, Highway 6, 191, you'll probably see the Elevated Transit bus at least once a day going north and southbound. It's a larger over-the-road coach, just smaller than your atypical Greyhound bus, but these guys are trying hard to provide a really good service. Okay, so again, when I mentioned Greyhound and the intercity bus linkage, we do have a funding contract with Greyhound. It's kind of a joint project and contract through Colorado DOT, where we provide funding assistance along with Colorado DOT for the route from Denver to Salt Lake along Highway 40. In order to provide that gives us some of the background and match funding for Elevated Transit for the intercity bus routes. Kind of the third program in our DOT program between fixed route, intercity bus is demand response. This is probably our most visible group, where we're serving seniors, persons, disabilities, and low income groups. This funding goes to primarily private nonprofits as well as local agencies that they're either procuring a bus or operational monies, but it's a much needed segment. I want to think most of us are not there yet, but you either know someone or family member that either is or will soon either be a senior or has a disability. But think about it, for the majority of us who are single car, if not do ride transit, one day we're going to be in this demand response arena. It's something most everyone's not aware of. I truly wasn't aware of it till I got in this position several years ago. But it's a much needed specialized segment of transit that's out there. Again, we do not fund everything that's going on in the state. We are just a very, very small portion of the trips that are made under this specialized transit. We're probably involved in about 1/10. If we're saying around 150,000 trips out of that million and a half trips a year that we know are occurring, we've got a very small amount of money that's in it. We primarily reach out and have contact with a lot of the local agencies, counties, cities, as well as the private nonprofit groups. We reach out to them through the Association of Governments, the AOGs, across the state. Each of those AOGs have a transportation transit planner that we utilize a portion of their time, that they are actively trying to deal with the providers that are out in their region. There's a lot of things that we ask them to do as far as coordinated plans for transit, basic outreach to a lot of these groups, as well as trying to coordinate some of the trips that have to happen. It's a list here in the southeast of some of the groups that we deal with. 5 County Association down in the southwest. Bear River in the northeast. Uinta Basin also in the northeast, extreme northeast there. And 6 County Association of Governments. In the urbanized area, the Wasatch Front area, they get a chunk of money through the federal program through UTA, so that covers Weaver, Davis, Salt Lake, Utah counties, and some of the fringe counties, Summit, Wasatch, Tooele, Morgan. So I know I kind of went through this fast, but there's just a few main programs that we go through. Our primary mission is that we're getting funding into the private nonprofit groups in order to move people, one, in a basic, safe manner, constant manner, but we're providing funding on an 80-20 match so that groups can get a vehicle, either a demand response, an ADA-equipped type vehicle, 22, 25, 29-foot vehicle. Can also be minivan style for that specialized transport, senior, person's disability, and low income. There's some monies, and that's 50-50 match that's available for the operation of that vehicle and their administrative costs. That's probably the brunt of what we do, along with monies that go to the fixed route providers. If you haven't heard of any of these programs, either get in touch with your senior county groups, transportation planner, transit planner that's in each of the AOGs. They can educate you more. We primarily do a funding application round early fall, which we just went through. We're going through and assessing those applications now. We should make a ruling on those by January for the next round of funding that'll go out the door. So again, if you have any questions, think you know of someone or a group that's interested both in a vehicle, we can help you. Staff here can help as far as doing eligibility analysis and what funding year, what type of funds you would probably settle into. Any questions or thoughts? One more time. Okay. Yeah, there's a small group of projects that we do also, and we didn't list them. It's the construction projects. There's a small amount of money out there that is also available from the procurement of buses, 5339, that goes for building construction. Park City Transit has been pretty good at picking up a lot of that money from building everything from maintenance to bus wash to a temporary driver dormitory type building to now they're starting construction, planning construction on a new transit center up at Kimball Junction, much like the transit center that's right off the roundabout off of Main Street over in Park City. We've done park and ride lot recently up in Logan. We did a shared maintenance facility down in Cedar. Now I'm forgetting what else. But those projects are far between. They've got to be planned out. It's part of the coordinated plan, the overall transit plan that happens at the AOG level in order to kind of get the ducks in a row, timing in a row for some of the funding streams. Try and coordinate with the UDOT regions as well. They've got their ear to the ground. What people and interest groups are coming to them. Kind of want to reach back out to the regions and make them aware of the transit program. It's really interesting to introduce myself in the last few years and say I'm with UDOT Transit. And again, people are like, yeah, you're pulling our leg, right? No, really, transit. Again, that's where a big chunk of your transit dollars go. We also help fund some of the background transit studies. Large one that's online right now is SR9 from St. George to Springdale, trying to look at feasibility of who and what is the nature of people moving along that corridor. Is it residential, tourist? Is it a demand response need for the specialized transit needs? Should have that study coming online pretty soon here. That'll be pretty interesting. So there's monies available for short and long range planning to do a coordinated plan in, say, the AOG area. Again, we coordinate with the AOGs on that on an annual basis. You guys got questions? I know you guys got to dig deep out there. We just put a large order in for 16 buses, a bunch of 29s, 25, 22 footers. Think we'll be seeing those very early winter, probably February, if not March. Those will be coming online here in the state. We typically order somewhere around 10 to 20 vehicles a year on average as a demand response. Those are a replacement vehicle or a new vehicle. We get a lot of requests. I want to call it a cold request where somebody calls in and says, oh, I need a vehicle. And then when you start explaining the process to them, the time involved, and the federal brouhaha hoops that you got to go through in order to keep and maintain that money to get the vehicle. That's why we're only doing just maybe a tenth of what we could do. Plus there just isn't enough money out there. There's a higher need than there's money, and that's always the story. Current total fleet, if I remember, is 76 vehicles that we have an interest in, again, across the state. It's not our fleet. We have ownership in the vehicle because we have 80% of the money, so we track the title and make sure that the recipient is keeping the vehicle running, that it's insured, and they're following federal regs. Um, you may have an agency that has 10 vehicles in their fleet, specialized vehicles in their fleet, and we may only have one of those, have an interest in one. We're kind of a shot in the dark at trying to get a better price at a vehicle. Average 22, 25-foot vehicle right now runs around $55,000, $60,000. So as a recipient, say as a county, you would have to put up $10,000 to $12,000 in order to get that vehicle. But then we're going to be knocking on the door to make sure that you're going to run it for 7 years, 150,000 miles, or down to $5,000 worth, whichever comes first. So that's we maintain the title much like a bank would up until that time. There's a lot of agencies out there that just run those vehicles as far as they can, as long as they can. Like I said, we're only involved in probably a tenth of the movement that's out there. From the 76 vehicles that we have an interest in, 148,000 people back in 2014. And we know there's about a million two that are being moved on an annual basis. It's a question of money. We, when we do deal with each of the fixed route agencies, as well as the subrecipients through the counties or the private nonprofits, we try and make sure that we're spreading the buses around. There's always more demand than money available. I think the other year we had 22 applications, and we were only able to satisfy about half, about 10. Again, I wish we could do more. I know it was a short present. It was kind of a basic, what's rural transit? How do we move people? Tomorrow we're going to get more in-depth onto the each of the funding groups, kind of a 101 course on each of the funding and either how to apply or what the eligibility requirements are as you get down to each category. This is just kind of a primer on what we do. Again, a lot of people go, yeah, you're UDOT, you're putting down pavement. No, we do buses. It's about mobility. It's about moving people. There's each of these regional coordinator planners are responsible for trying to coordinate trips among the systems as well as the providers that are out in their region. We don't want to fall into the trap where you see one head in a bus go by. That if that vehicle is out there running, how do we get more people in it? Who do we need to talk to? How do we share rides amongst groups so that somebody can get their basic needs trip, be it a trip to the bank, church, or bank, food, or medical type service on a scheduled basis, as well as trying to serve all different types of persons, either in a shared vehicle or a combination of vehicles. Again, there's a lot of groups that are out there that are not even on our radar. They just don't want to come in and deal with the federal regs that go with us. Groups come and go. We don't necessarily get the same application year after year from the same agency. We may see somebody once every 5 or 7 years when they wear the vehicle out, then they come in for a new one. Yeah, so it's kind of hard to say who has those 76 vehicles. Somebody may have 5 of them, pretty much like United Way. and then they're quiet for a year or two. Then they come in and get another 5. So, is there anybody out there in the crowd that actually knows of a program in their entity or their group that uses one of the vehicles, one of the ADA vehicles that we're involved in? Yeah. I think we did talk to you down in Price. Did we not? About a year ago? With, yeah. Yeah, we try and do an annual visit, again, through the AOGs, to discuss what their upcoming needs are in their area and to make sure they're doing their outreach to all the providers, subrecipients that are eligible out in their area. Again, we're not full funding of assistance to a lot of groups, and that kind of surprises people as well. We're assistance funding, we're kind of a shot in the arm, but again, I wish we could do more. So if you get a chance, again, if you have questions or you know somebody in your agency that might be involved with senior aging, state aging, ADA programs that are in your area, low income outreach, have them call us. We can deal with them and help them get them on the path of coordinated trips. Thank you.